Hello and welcome. In this video, I will explain the different types of programming languages based on their proximity to the computer hardware. What is a programming language? A programming language is basically used to write instructions for the computer to carry out. There are two main levels of programming languages based on their proximity or closeness to the computer hardware. So the two main levels of programming language are low-level languages and high-level languages. A computer doesn't understand normal English, so the way a computer follows or interprets the instructions that have been written for it to carry out is in zeros and ones. So computer only understands zeros and ones. So when you write computer code in something that looks like English, it has to be converted into zeros and ones for the computer to understand. So the two main levels of languages are low level and high level. In this illustration here, the nearer the language is to the computer hardware, which is things like the computer memory and so on, then the lower the language and the faster it is for the computer to carry out the instructions. Okay, so any languages that are closer to the hardware obviously will process the information faster and be able to execute or carry out the actions required by the computer. So the examples of low-level languages are machine language and assembly language. These two are regarded as low-level, and then we've got the high-level languages. These are languages that are closer to the human eye. So there are languages that humans can read that looks like English and things like that. So you've got example like Fortran, C, Pascal. We've got others like JavaScript and so on. JavaScript, Java, Python, so many others. Any modern programming language today used by developers or programmers are mainly high-level languages. The computer doesn't understand them. They have to be converted or translated into zeros and ones for the computer to understand. So what are low-level languages? Low-level languages are basically languages that are closer in proximity to the computer hardware and harder for the humans to read. With a low-level language, you require a deep knowledge of the internal structure of the computer hardware. So if you're going to write instructions for the computer to follow in a low language, it's going to take a long time because you're going to have a deep understanding. It is possible, but it would take a fairly long time to do that. With low-level languages, you don't need to convert it into zeros and ones for the computer to understand it, because it's so close to the computer hardware. The computer already understands the instructions written in a low-level language. So any code or computer instructions that you write in low-level languages are processed by the computer processor directly. So you don't need to translate them or compile them for the computer to understand. The computer already understands them because they're so close to the hardware. Typical example of low-level languages are machine language and assembly language. High-level languages are ones that you are probably aware of. They are the ones that developers and programmers mainly use because they are easier for humans to read. They are like English, so you can easily read or understand high-level languages in comparison to low-level languages. With a high-level language, the machine would not understand. So when you write instructions or code in high-level languages, you're actually writing it for yourself as a developer or programmer. The computer does not understand that. It has to be compiled or interpreted. When a high-level language is interpreted, that means there has to be, for example, JavaScript. JavaScript has an engine inside the web browser that interprets any JavaScript you write line by line. That means as you write the JavaScript, it will interpret what you've written before the web browser can display the information. If a language is compiled, that means the entire language has to be compiled maybe into an executable. Then you run the executable before you actually see the output. So there's a difference between a language that is compiled or interpreted. So either way, some high-level languages have to be interpreted, while some have to be compiled before the computer can understand what you are asking it to do. So examples of high-level languages are some you may have come across. JavaScript is a popular one. It's also mainly an interpreted language, because with JavaScript, as you write JavaScript, there's an interpreter inside your web browser that will interpret the JavaScript you write. So it converts that into machine code. Then we have Python, PHP, Ruby, Go, C#, Swift, Java. There are so many more. There are hundreds of programming languages. Some are popular, some are not. Some have a period of time where they are high in popularity. Other times they fade away. And a language basically is popular by the number of people that are using it, the application that has been built using the languages, and also if there's a significant job market for that language, and also a community that supports that language. Most programmers will learn one or many languages, but there are some core basic concepts that are the same across all languages. So that's it for this video. The key thing you can take away from this video is that there are two main levels of programming languages. There's a high-level language, which is closer for the hardware to read and more difficult for the humans to read, and which is also faster to execute or run, while the high-level languages are easier for the humans to read, but they have to be compiled or interpreted. What these two terms mean basically means they have to be converted into machine code for the machine to understand the instructions. So high-level languages are what you're really going to be using when you are programming for a computer, or writing programming languages or instructions for the computer to follow. So when you build applications like things like Facebook, things like Twitter, Instagram, they were all built using high-level languages. So that's it. Thanks for watching.